Computer.
Okay.
Hello, hello, and welcome to Reclaim Yourself. This is the second day of your Reclaim Challenge. And my name is Leanne. I am your mastery coach, Kettlebell Lady of Iron with Kettlebell Plus 360. The guest I had scheduled today at the last minute was unable to make it, but I'd like you to give a warm welcome to Yvonne. She stepped in and she is going to share with you.
Hello, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. So should I tell them a little bit about my beginnings?
Yes, tell you a little about yourself, how you got started and where you came from and where you're going.
Well, I had PMR, which is polymyalgic rheumatica. I had come down with that. I guess it turns out it was just a nerve. My nerves began to hurt. My muscles were not working properly. I couldn't even get myself out of bed without feeling pain. And I was just in despair. And so a friend of mine that went to church, the same church as us together, she was having exercise times with Kettlebell Lady, Leanne. And she said to me, "Oh, I have a friend who would be very helpful. Why don't you?" And so she introduced me to Leanne. And since then, I was so appreciative of how Leanne encouraged me to listen to my body, but yet to move in a healthy way. I was so thankful to get started using the very lightweight kettlebells at first and just sitting in my seat. But when I would feel pain and doing what I was doing, I just had to, she encouraged me to only go that far. And so it was like 2 years later, well, I realized that one of the things that was causing my polymyalgic rheumatica was some dysfunction of my knee. And so when the doctor put a metal knee in me, then we slowly had to work that one through. And but now I'm so thankful that I can use my muscles. I can swing a heavier kettlebell, and I can squat and stand up again and do a lot of these things that Leanne slowly helped me get back into doing. And I can function. And I'm not a young lady anymore. I've reached, whoa. I've reached my 8th decade in this life. Wow. So it's kind of, I'm amazed that I'm able to move as I am now, but I'm so thankful.
And you have your grandchildren, you're with your grandchildren, and what, you garden and bicycle and you have a full active life and a ministry.
I do. I like to travel to the country that we lived in Turkey. And so we have a lot of friends there, and I like to go back and visit them. And I was there as an English teacher at first, and then as a piano teacher, and then they wanted me to teach them the Bible. And so I was there as a Bible teacher. And I just have experienced a lot of exciting things. So going back to visit them is a treat for me, but I need to be well and be able to move around. And so it was great to be able to go back about a couple of years ago before this COVID started. And I just confessed that I did have the COVID illness, but I was not I didn't even have a fever. It was a very light case, and I actually preferred to have just the disease than to have the vaccine. In my case, it was, and I do think it was because I was exercising well, I was eating wisely, I was not feeding myself things that would not help me. And and I just appreciated Leanne's suggestions on keeping my blood system pure with certain drinks. Yeah.
Let's get started here. So I'm glad that Yvonne's with me today, and we're going to go through how you can reclaim yourself
Yes.
And
Good.
I do have a PDF attached so you can keep a diary. And I call it diary, but a journal. So you can journal to help measure your progress, because we need to each challenge ourselves in the areas where we need to get strength. Maybe it's in your health, in your physical fitness, or relationships. Let's see if I can get
Yes.
this. And so I basically work with those that are 40 and over to discover what's holding you back. Because if you have anything that's holding you back, then it's almost impossible to live a full, active life. And so I have others that's like Yvonne who seek help through difficult, challenging areas. That's one of my specialties. And it doesn't matter if you have an illness, back, shoulder, hip pain, whatever it is, they come to me and I do what I can to help you regain and reclaim yourself.
Yes.
And there's a very interesting study done by a Dr. Miracoa. And I don't know if it was you, Yvonne, but it really surprised me that our brains cannot tell the difference between a physical or mental fatigue. Fatigue is fatigue.
Fatigue is fatigue. Yes.
And when our body gets fatigued, and that's one thing we'll discuss today is how to help identify that, then the autoimmune system kicks in, cuts off the circulation through the blood throughout the entire body, and then we get into fatigue and pain, and our minds do not function well.
Yeah.
And so it's very important that we stay active, we have quality superfoods, and we get adequate sleep. And as a personal trainer, we talk about overreaching, overtraining. But guess what? We all experience that every time we overdo it. We may have an extremely busy day and think, oh, if I can just fit in that one more thing. Well, that one more thing shuts the body down. Then we get into adrenal overload. The cortisol kicks in, the heart rate goes up, and then we have trouble sleeping, eating, our moods can get crabby, depressed, and difficult completing daily tasks, irregular heartbeats, inflammation, muscle tissues, mental fatigue, and it's hard for our bodies to recover if we do not have it in balance. And so I have a chart here where you can see it easier to help learn how to gauge yourself. It's called the rate of perceived exertion. And again, this fits into how the body needs to balance between the mental and physical fatigue that we can experience. And this is how we reclaim ourselves, is if it's very light activity, you can rate that as 1. And that you can talk easily, you can move, and you can be in action. And if your activity gets a little heavier, then it goes 2 to 3. And you can still breathe, and it can do this for hours, and you can carry on conversations. But as we get more stressed and we start deciding we can get more done, or even for playing a game or watching TV, it has the same impact on us. And we get to moderate 4 to 5, vigorous activity 6 to 7, and very hard is 8 to 9. And especially any kind of health condition, you need to make sure you know how to pace yourself. And that's one thing Yvonne is really good about was learning how to pace herself, and knowing even though she wanted to do a lot more, there were times where she had to discern, if I am right, Yvonne, you had to discern how much and what you could do and then just rest.
Yes, I did.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. I took a bike ride around with some friends that were, you know, 1/2 my age, and and I had to just slow down and go as far as I could, and you know, I just had to find my limits. They, much younger, could carry on. That's fine. Let them go.
And
But
that's a real good point, because it doesn't matter what our age is, we need to leave our egos at the door, to listen to our bodies, and when it tells us to stop or slow down, to listen to it.
yes,
It's telling us that for a reason.
yes,
And when I talk a lot about how is our mindset. As a mastery coach, we are trained to look at what the fact is, how we see it. Is the way we see it, is that the only way to see it? Is that helping us, or is that going to hinder us? And so if we keep doing what we've always done, we're going to get what we always got. And that's basically when we have our emotions and then we have an action or result. That's what happens unless we change directions. And sometimes, like where I was at and with Yvonne's journey, it's important that we listen to our inner selves, get uncomfortable, and listen to and look for all the details of what we need to move forward. This is just another one I like, is don't affirm the negative if you want a positive outcome. And so again, when we get too fatigued, then the part of our brain comes on where it goes into flight, fear, and we get mentally confused, and it just does not work well. We need to be able to relax and be able to be in the other part of our brain, the parasympathetic, that slows us down so we can breathe deep and relax. So how do you change your story and reclaim your life? That's what this challenge is about. And are you willing to take the risk? Sometimes life is about risking everything in order to move forward. And that can be scary. And Yvonne probably can relate to that. It can be real scary when you don't know what's coming next. Is that correct?
Except that I just love talking to my creator God, who knows the end from the beginning. And I find a lot of peace and a lot of courage that he just shares with me. So I don't worry about this body when I commit it to him. So I love that too. That always helps me too, big time.
And I agree with that, because that's been my inner strength, my guidance.
Yes.
Going down the path that's been chosen for me.
Yes, I love it.
So when we start shaping our day, start walking our own walk, and that's just what Yvonne and I are talking. You got to walk your own walk. The journey's yours. Take charge of it. We all have our own sovereign inner selves, and stop giving others the power to shape our life.
And God helps us.
When we do that, we're totally off track.
Right. Yeah, he gives us the wisdom too.
So we all have challenges ahead. Every day we're going to have challenges. We can't always choose what happens, but we can the way we respond to it.
Yes.
So that's again what this is about. What are you looking for? It's not out there, it's within yourself. So let's see if we can explore and help you find what's in yourself so you can reclaim your life. Things outside of my control. We got actions, we got feelings, we got mistakes, we got opinions. Things I can control is my attitude, my effort, my behavior, my actions to be a great team member. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and a lot of that I need to find healing by giving it over to God, talking to him about it. I love the Word of God, the Bible, because it shares a lot on how we can cope with these things. And and he keeps us moving. So thank God. Yeah.
And I'm not going to go too long with this. I just put this little slide in here. This is what happens when we try to overdo it, and we want to overcome fatigue through movement, and we get into overload. That's when the injuries go up.
Yeah.
And none of us like to be down with being sick and injured.
No.
And this is just a little bit about my story. I started out with a seatbelt injury that had left me disabled. I won't go into all the details of that. And I discovered at the same time I had 2 major illnesses. And as I had just shared, it's those times when we need to dig deep into ourselves, and then we need to change directions, because where I was at was not working. I kept getting sicker. I kept getting worse. And it wasn't until I had the courage and looked at the details and changed directions was my life reclaimed and restored. And that's why I'm so thrilled to be sharing this with you today. And this is just about movement, because we need to move all day. You're now hearing a lot about movement. I've been in for movement for a long, long time. And during my healing journey, I learned, and which is very important for all of us. In fact, I'll ask Yvonne right now, how are you sitting in your chair? How is your posture? Are you aware how you're moving? Are you sitting up so you can get, and Yvonne's starting to smile, so I may have busted her. And blood
I have to remind myself, sit up, girl.
And get that oxygen and nutrients into our tissues. Movement helps get rid of the stagnant blood and releases into the body. That helps overcome our fatigue and helps us to move with less pain or no pain. And again, as we discussed with the rate of perceived exertion, and Yvonne was talking about it, is knowing, even as everyone else is doing it, that that's not you. Is a maybe need to use a 50% rule or less in that day to make sure that you're staying within what your body actually is able to do. That's part of your reclaim challenge, is to really get in touch with your inner self to understand exactly where your limits are.
Yes.
And as Yvonne knows, this is one thing I do, and one of my specialties is functional movement. I actually started using this before I became certified, because I needed to learn how to communicate with my healthcare providers of why from the seatbelt injury, I kept getting worse. So I could go in and say, well, why am I standing funny? Why is my arms not moving this way? And I help me get the tools I need to help get the answers. And it does have, and I can do it in 10 minutes of screening. I run Yvonne through this, where you can squat, see if you can do a herbal step, and how's your shoulder mobility? Can you do a push-up? How's your straight leg raise, which tells me how you're moving well from your hips, and on all fours for your motor and control. It's called a bird dog. So with the fundamentals of movement, you learn to move under tension and relax, controlled by inner abdominal pressure. That's a mouthful, isn't it? To protect the back, to avoid injury under a load. Because every day we're going to be picking up objects, may not be weighing much, or it may be 5, 10, 15 pounds, depending on what you're picking up. Might be a bag of pet food or something else, or you may need to raise up on a shelf. And I believe for exercise, it needs to be functional movement. That's one reason that Yvonne and I like kettlebells. And that's part of my healing, was using kettlebells, rebuilding tissues. And this is just more about function and movement. And we need to be able to take a jarring, carry a load, or a sack of groceries. And this is fundamentals of principles are the foundation of what I work with. And then this is, we already pretty well discussed this, and how to avoid overreaching or overtraining. Again, it's learning how to really be in tune to your inner body, doing Tai Chi, yoga, sitting quietly, praying, meditating, and being aware of where your weak links are and where you need help.
Yes.
And then again, we discussed this on how to overcome and work with that rate of perceived exertion, and look for your body's symptoms and when it's talking to you.
Yes.
And here is just about yoga and Tai Chi. And what I find interesting about our way our bodies is made, we have a vagus nerve. That vagus nerve runs from the brain all the way down to the back. And that is the command switch. So if we're on the sympathetic flight, fright, on the move, our bodies cannot slow down enough to heal. That was an important part of my healing, is I have done the exercise form of Tai Chi Quan for over 15 years. So we need to find those slow, gentle moves that can pace our body, help keep that blood and oxygen circulating through. It increases, have firmer muscles, sleep sounder, and you can relaxing and you keep focus, handle stress easier, increase your self-esteem, even helps your immune system and circulatory system.
Yes.
And exercise reduces injuries and increases strength and flexibility and agility, coordination, and balance. And look at Yvonne. She's very active. And at her age, there's a lot of people that are now in a nursing home or a wheelchair or a walker or cane. Not Yvonne. She's on the move. And look at her bright smile. And then the other part is talking about, and I'm glad she got up and stretched, because we do need to get up and stretch and move. That's very important. So anytime get up and stretch and move is to inhale and exhale. And we're going to go into that a little more in the next diaphragm. But when we inhale and exhale, we need to take really deep, deep, full breaths, no chest breaths. And I'll explain in this next slide what happens if we just take chest breaths. And now Yvonne's sitting up really tall and she's breathing deep. Because she knows in the exercise class, one thing that we really worked on is that we breathe out to the top of the move. At the top of the move, we breathe in. We worked a lot on breathing, different forms of breathing. Like your 4 square breathing, where you come up, take a deep breath, and the military uses it. And then they come back up with their hands and they breathe down. You can also do Qigong breath, your hands out the side, head in neutral. You turn to the right, your palms down. Turn to the left, palms up. Take a deep breath, go to center. And then we're gonna go to the right, palms down. Go to center, breathe in, palms up. There's many forms of breathing, but you can do that throughout the day and keep yourself in a state of calm. So that's, again, the other part of reclaiming yourself with the breathing. And this is what happens when we don't breathe deep. We have secondary neck muscles. It's called the scaling muscles into our necks. And it runs down into the traps and some of the other adjoining muscles. So it's not like you are a pain in the neck or somebody else is, but you can have pain in the neck because you're not breathing deep enough, and then you get stressed out, can't focus, you get crabby, you get irritable, and you call that air hunger because your body just isn't getting enough air, and you can even get headaches and dizzy. And so as Yvonne knows, sometimes we put our hand on our chin and stretch up this way, and we breathe deep and just press and stretch out. Was it you, the one that when you do this, it keeps the circulation in your arms going? And you put your hands behind your neck and stretch back and really stretch it out. And then go to both sides. Oh, and I feel that move. And then take your chin and put it down to your chest and breathe in real deep and exhale on the way up and look straight up and stretch down and move those shoulders. And you probably can already feel some relaxation, but it's always good throughout the day when you start feeling the neck muscles to get tight to do some very deep breathing and get them relaxed. You can also go to a massage practitioner that's trained in working the scaling the muscles, and they can help get them taken care of. And we already pretty well covered that. Then there'll be a replay. You can go into this in more detail. And now the other thing that you can do is strengthen the respiratory muscles. There's a variety of ways you can do that. For instance, we call it crocodile breathing. I have diaphragms on that if anyone wants it, where you're on your stomach and you feel that breath. And you can even, where you're sitting, put a hand on your chest, one on your abs, and start taking some real deep breaths. And you kinesthetically, when you're on your stomach and you have your hands here, you can actually take your hands to each side and push your hands out. And another one that's real helpful if you don't have any cardiovascular hypertension or anything, is take a 10-pound weight. My favorite is a barbell 10-pound weight. Put it on your abs. It strengthens your abs, and you're flat on your back on the floor. This is by Dr. Stuart McGill, back specialist, and this is one of the best ways he says to help get that breathing really, really deep into your diaphragm. And that diaphragm is like an accordion. It breathes in and it breathes out, and it breathes even through the back. So if we're not taking really, really deep breaths, our body is not being oxygenated fully. And that, again, that's how we control our movement patterns, so that the anatomical breathing pattern matches what you're doing. In other words, at the top of the move, I should be ready from breathing out, ready to breathe in and push that weight down. I mean, that could even be with a sack of groceries. And this is about functional exercise. And if it isn't functional, then I'm not too fond of it. In fact, I was just reading an article why they've gone away from just exercising different body parts in different days. Because, I mean, it's okay if you're a bodybuilder, but most of us, we need to be strong and flexible and work within safe guidelines. And that's something I also set up, as safe guidelines for exercise. This is some of your exercises. Functional training, train for life. Can you pick up objects, squat, reach, planks? That's just off the floor, rolls, reach, knees up. I think, Yvonne, how much fun we had in class doing rolls. We love to take and just roll away, right?
Yes. Yes.
And that's just real good exercise, and it's a low impact for the body.
Yes.
And this is recommended exercises. It needs to be as part of your daily life. Gear exercise and physical activity to your own abilities. Avoid prolonged sitting and staying in the same position. And I'm only going to cover the stretching very lightly today. We're going to go into detail tomorrow on the final Reclaim Yourself Day, but I do have a private Facebook group you can join, so we can communicate and grow together. And the stretching is something you do all the day. In fact, let's just stretch a bit here.
Yeah.
And Yvonne's getting up and stretching.
Yeah.
Now they disappeared there because she's down stretching and moving. And that's good. Just stretch and breathe. And
over.
Oh, and that feel good?
Does, yes. And then this is what we used to do. I remember too, that was helpful.
Yes, see, she's doing some crossover from knee to knee. Helps with your balance, coordination. Look how flexible and how much balance she has. And then we have a cross oblique system in our bodies where the left affects the right and the right the left, on the interior and the posterior.
Amen. Yes.
That just feels so good. And this is the benefits of stretching, which improves your health, enhances flexibility, your function, reduces risk of injury, enhances performance, blood flow, circulation, and minimizes the wear and tear on your joints and your body.
Yes,
and so tomorrow we're going to go more into the benefits of stretching. So I appreciate you joining me today and having Yvonne here. And Yvonne's going to be back tomorrow to join me. So I want each of you to have a great day and make sure that you're reclaiming your life and setting the goals you need to challenge yourself. This is your master coach, Kettlebell Lady of Iron with Kettlebell Plus 360.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now I find her to switch here.
Yeah. So we're off.